Hello people, I wanted to just give you an update since the last video. You know that I had been on the waiting list to go into Strathcarron for symptom management. Well, last Friday, late, about 4, just before business finishing time, I got a call from one of the nurses on my team at Strathcarron to say they had a multidisciplinary meeting with the doctors in the morning and wanted to rule out a PE, which is a pulmonary embolism. It's basically a blood clot. It's one of the symptoms is I've had a high heart rate for nearly 4 months now. So they thought if I'm going to get admitted to Strathcarron, they would definitely want to do these tests and scans, which would be done at Forth Valley Hospital. So they thought if I agreed to it, would I agree to having a hospital admission in Forth Valley instead to start with, and didn't know what the plan would be after that, whether they would want to take over symptom management or they would then have to go on and do symptom management in Strathcarron. So I said yes, because I thought, well, I want the scans done fast, even though in the past and my consultant and doctors and myself have always been against hospital admissions in Forth Valley because of risk of infection, because I'm so immunosuppressed. They want to keep me out of hospital because I've stayed so well for all these years and I've stayed alive and smashed the prognosis of my lifespan already by skipping getting infections. But I said yes and just took it that they would have everything in place, that I'd get a room to myself and everything would be, isolated and things. So that was on the Friday, and because I'd been so poorly, my lovely sister had said, could we come and visit you? My sister from London, along with her man and my nephew and my dad. So they drove up and on Friday, and I had a beautiful weekend with them. I had a real busy house. I said, just stay with us because, well, Dylan's moved out, so they two could sleep. My sister and her man could sleep in Dylan's double bed. Dad could sleep in the single room, and my nephew could be fine on the couch. So that's what we did. We had a lovely busy wee house. It was great. And we played games and we had takeaways and we had a tea party, and just generally, I just doped up the whole weekend so I could be the best that I could be and enjoy their company. So that was lovely. So Monday, I was expecting the call, which was told on the Friday, that on Monday I would get a call about getting blood tests for a PE and get an injection of a blood thinner in the meantime, and then it would just be a case of waiting on a bed for Forth Valley. So on Monday, yesterday, the nurse came in the morning, took my bloods, and then I realised, I thought, I've not had this injection. So by that time my friend had came round to visit me, and she was here. I thought, Kelly, I need to phone the doctors to see about the injection. So I phoned my GP and I'd said I was expecting to get the injection. And they said, 2 minutes. And then the next minute she said, oh, well, we'll arrange transport. Within the next hour to 2 hours, somebody's coming to collect you to get admitted to Forth Valley. you're going to get your injection done there and be admitted to get your scans. And well, I thought, that's great. That's fine. I had already sort of half packed anyway for Strathcarron, and I'm glad Kelly was there to help me pack. And she phoned Danny straight away, and he was home within 5 minutes, and we were all packed and ready to go, luckily, because the ambulance arrived within, I don't know, half an hour, maybe 40 minutes. So from there I went into Forth Valley yesterday afternoon, and went into the AAU Unit 1 and had a room to myself, so I was quite happy at that, and I thought, well, this will be my room. And got all my checks done. Doctors came in and done ECGs and things like that, and checked all my medication. I had all my medication with me anyway, because I have to take it at regular times, and you know, it takes a long time for a hospital to sort your medication out, and if I don't get mine, I have withdrawals. So took all that in and was fine to take all that. Had my dinner in there and things, and all my oxygen was fine. They gave me extra tubing so I could make myself a wee bit more independent to get myself to the toilet in my wee room, and give me a longer tubing, because initially I was just hooked up on a wee short tube as like a dog. So I can't go anywhere. These are the kind of restrictive things that happen. So when I ask for things, don't get me wrong, it didn't happen straight away. I'm so like you know, I know like how busy these nurses are, but honestly the care I got was fantastic. They were busy wee bees, but you know, I was well cared for. And I was like, what about my husband, about visiting? But unknown to me, he'd been phoning around trying to figure out where I was, and he appeared about 6:30 after I got my dinner. At that time the nurse and the doctor was in, and they were saying that my blood tests came back and I didn't have a pulmonary embolism, but I was going to be going for a chest scan, an x-ray, a chest x-ray that evening, but the CT scan and echocardiogram wouldn't be now, it would probably be tomorrow. Speaking about going on Tuesday, so I'd be staying in overnight, and I was like, that's fine. And they said, well, somebody's coming to pick you up soon for your chest x-ray. And then we realised that one of my main tablets, my nintedanib, which is one of the trial drugs, it's a biological therapy, forgot to bring that. And we says to the doctor, and she says, oh, we wouldn't have that one here anyway. You know, it's actually one of the tablets that gets delivered for a special chemist. It costs £8,000 a month, this drug, this biological therapy, so it's important that I take it. So the doctor and nurse had says to Danny, when she goes for her scan, the porter's just been called. Danny had said, I'll go away, I only live 5 minutes away, I could come back with it. And they says, that's fantastic, if you can do that, that's great. And I was already overdue taking it as well, because you really have to take this tablet with food. It really messes with your tummy and gives you terrible diarrhea and stomach upsets if you don't take it with your dinner. But I'd already had a dinner, so I'd say to Danny, you better pick me up a wee snack as well to have this with. So anyway, I got transferred into my chair with the porter to go away to the x-ray, and Danny toddled off. But when I got in the chair, they says to the x-ray guy, oh, she's getting moved, so she might not be here, she might be in AAU 2. So I thought, I didn't know I was getting moved. Anyway, I just left it at that, went away for my scan, my x-ray, my chest, and on the way back, here enough I had been moved. I'd actually been moved into a wardroom. There was only 2 other people in it, but I wasn't feeling very comfortable there at all, but was told that I was getting moved again upstairs to the respiratory ward. So I thought, right, okay, this is obviously just a wee interim just now. So I didn't want to bang on too much about it. So that was me, and I had the most horrendous experience. And I have never been treated like this in my life. Where to start? I've sort of got it written down here because we are making an official complaint. So what have I got here? I'm just going to read what I've wrote here. So when I came back, the porter hooked me up to the long tubing and raised my bed. And as I sat in the bed, I was still on the high flow. I decided not to disrupt the nurses, and that I would just get out of bed quickly, turn it down to a 4 to let you know that I need 12 litres per minute to move. But when I'm at rest, I only need between 4.5 usually. But the type of tubing that they had in this hospital, it had measured it in the other unit. I needed 5 because it wasn't bringing my SATs up to where they needed to be. So I hopped off the bed, turned it down to 5 and got back on the bed, and then I was doing huffing and puffing and huffing and puffing, doing my breathing exercises till I got back up. Now there was a nurse present in the room and she didn't even acknowledge me. And you could clearly see that I was distressed and not being able to breathe. But you know what, I thought I'm not bothered about that. So that was the first sign, lack of care. And then soon after that, about 10 minutes after that, Danny arrived with my medication. And I heard them outside, because the nurse's station was just outside the ward. And my husband went to ask for water for myself. And I always need water anyway, because I get so dry and I can choke and go into these spasms. So he went to ask for water for me, and just to say, oh, I've got this medication now that I was ordered to get by the doctor. And in response was, nope, she's not getting any water because she's going to get moved soon, and she shouldn't be taking any drugs that they don't know about. So my husband clearly stated that he'd been sent home to get this important medication, that it was really important that I got it. It was a biological therapy, and to check with the colleagues next door and please read my notes. And my husband was that dumbfounded, he just walked away and come into the ward to see me. So as the station was just outside the door, I sort of shouted outside. I didn't want to press my emergency button, and I was like, please can you come and talk with me, and at least I can tell you all about the things that I need. It's really important that I take this medication. And I was completely blanked, completely ignored. And I think because of all the stress and not having a drink for so long, I started getting into a choking fit. And at that we had to press the emergency button. And I can't talk, and my husband was shouting, she needs water, please can you get her water, she's choking. And at that, didn't come immediately, and I'm trying to gather as much saliva as possible to try and stop myself from coughing, which then can potentially lead into a choking fit and a spasm, and it goes down a whole other ball route after that. I need medication and things like that. I was just trying to control the coughing at the time and my mouth sticking together. And this nurse came in, she was a senior nurse because she had the dark blue tunic on, dumped a jug of water with a empty glass down on the table that was over my bed and walked straight back out the ward. And my husband poured the glass of water, settled me down. I got a wee drink and things like that. And he was trying to calm me down because I was just so then absolutely dumbfounded at that level of care. I'd pressed the emergency bell for water. I was clearly choking, and a nurse came and just dumped a jug of water with a glass on the table. Now that was episode number 1, or you could say it was 2 if you want to say about the, being in the same ward as a patient that was clearly struggling to breathe and just not acknowledging it. I got myself so upset. After that. I was uncontrollable, crying, and I was like, I've never had that level of care ever. Who would do that? Who would do that? What if my husband wasn't there? What would I have done? Was I supposed to have poured the water myself? If she would have read my notes, she'd know how disabled I am in my upper body to even use my arms at the moment. So that was number 1. And I was so upset. Another nurse came in, and I was trying to tell her what had happened, what her colleague had done. Got myself so upset that when I talk or when I eat, I also need a wee bit more oxygen, usually another couple of notches up. And I was like, please, can you just turn, because the oxygen turn up bit is behind you. It's behind your bed on the bit at the back. And I asked her to turn it up to 7. It would normally be 6, but because of the tubing, I knew it would be 7 I would need. I could feel my sats going low because I was getting myself that worked up and talking that much. I was using my oxygen up. And she's like, oh, I can't do that without you getting tests. And I'm like, yes, you can. I'm on 12 litres of oxygen and I need 6 or 7 now. I'm totally running out here. And she's like, I'll need to give you a test. I was like, well, put my oximeter on my finger, which was just lying on the table. It'd have been a quick fix. But no, she went and got the cuff to put on my arm to do my blood pressure. And at that time I was getting so irate. I was like, put me up to 7, this is terrible, this care. And I actually swore. I was like, will you put me up to fucking 7? And I swore the once. At that point, that other nurse was in the room as well. And I just couldn't even look at them. I closed my eyes, turned my head away from them, and sort of cuddled into Danny, who was trying to console me and calm me down, and just concentrated on my breathing exercises at that point. And by the time she'd done the measuring that, it takes about 2 minutes till I can breathe myself back up to a regular state. I'm lucky I'm not one of these anxious people, but I was being tested, certainly, because I was so upset. And I thought, I'm just wasting my breath on deaf ears here. And then she's saying, well, see, your sats are coming up into the 90s. And I'm like, yes, because I'm doing my breathing exercises now. I needed it at the time because I was trying to talk to you and upset. I says, I've been living with this for over 2.5 years and been on oxygen for over 2 years. I know what I need, and I'm trying to relay that back to you. And you've not even read my notes. So that was episode number 2. So then the porter came to take me to where I was going, the final destination. I thought, this is great, get me out of here. But I was obviously on a 4, I was on a 5 hooked up, and I says, you'll need to put me to a 12 so I can move to transfer. And the porter says, oh, I'm not allowed to do that. I says, that's fine, I understand that, because they're not allowed to do that. It's a medical thing. So I says, get the nurse. So the nurse came and she says, I can't turn you to 12. I was like, are you actually joking me? I says, have you looked at my notes? I have a prescription for nearly a year and a half. It been on 12 to 15 on movement and 4.5 on rest. I says, I've been an AUU Unit 1 all afternoon with no problems whatsoever. I says, and you expecting me to transfer on a 4.5? Well, I'm not moving it, she said to me. So she was adamant she wasn't moving my oxygen. But luckily, we had brought in our own oxygen in a little travel bag. So I says, well, if I use my own high flow stroller here, fully liquid oxygen, to the porter, I says, can you transfer me then? He says, aye, that's no problem. So at that, I was so upset. I couldn't believe it. I can't believe it. What would you want me to do? Get myself out of breath and try and move? On a 5, it's complete abuse. Absolute abuse. At that point, I mean, Danny was just dumbfounded. He was never seen him so angry. It takes a lot to wind us up. It takes a lot for him to get wound up and say anything. So I had to get my shoes on first, but I think my muscles and that were so tight at that point that when I went and bent down, I went into a spasm, and now all down this side, the costochondritis is completely flared up. I mean, it's been a good few weeks, it's not been as bad as this, but now I'm at the point where I'm breathing in, I'm doped up. I've left in a worse state than I went in. So, well, anyway, I was roaring and greeting all the way up to the ward. And when we got to the ward, they were trying to admit me to an actual ward full of people coughing and spluttering. I was like, no, Danny was like, no, she's not going in there. At that point, they phoned where I'd came from, which was, of course, a ward, the AA2, AUU2. Keep getting mixed up what it's called. And I heard them on the phone, and I says to them, excuse me, I says, I was never admitted there. I says, I'd been admitted all day in a segregated room. I says, and to let you know why I'm crying, this is what's happened. I need to take this call, my doctor's phoning.